Hello and welcome to the webinar brought to you today by BlueVenn, the leading customer data platform that gives marketeers a single customer view, customer analytics, predictive modeling and customer journey automation all in one tool. Okay, my name is Anthony Bottibol. I'm the marketing director for BlueVenn. I'm going to be monitoring BrightTalk during the live session, checking for any questions. As usual, if you have any of those, then please type them out during the session. We'll answer them at the end. The more interaction, the better. Joining me today is a real expert in the world of data-driven marketing, and without wanting to cause embarrassment, he was actually this week announced on the shortlist for Data Professional of the Year at the Data IQ Talent Awards in London next month.
Completely embarrassed.
Jim has worked in the MarTech space for 18 years, has consulted on some of the largest and probably most successful data marketing technology projects in the world, presents at trade shows, webinars, and very happy to have him here today to present a very unique and contemporary look at the evolution of customer journeys. So a big thank you, Jim, and over to you.
Thanks, Anthony, for that.
That's right.
Omnipotent introduction. Hi everyone, as Anthony said, this is a live webinar, so if you want to post any questions at any point during the presentation, please do feel free to do so. One thing we didn't want to do during this webinar is spend 60 minutes looking at data and products and analytics and how data-driven customer journey optimization can potentially change your world. This session is a lot tighter. It's more executive briefing style, hopefully, and it'll take about 30 minutes, I think, of your time. I just wanted to start by articulating what we mean when we talk about the customer journey. It's about trying to tell the story of a customer's experience interacting with your organization. The ideas behind the customer journey were born out of trying to understand and map each interaction, each touch point, and in order to raise the game away from just pure campaigns and content management into what is the customer-centric approach to mapping the experiences. Generally, industry and consultants, they tend to agree on 5 key parts of the journey, and you can name them which you want. There are lots of variations of the different names and roles, and even the order might actually change as well. But I've settled on awareness, consideration, buying, advocacy, and loyalty. One of the key things that you'll see actually is that in one of my recent presentations, a recent webinar that I gave, I actually had loyalty and advocacy around the other way. I had loyalty after buying and advocacy after that. I'm starting to think that that's potentially the wrong way around. And I'm starting to think that advocacy is actually driven after buying far quicker nowadays. We try to get the consumer to engage in advocacy openly straight after purchase. We ask them on the website for a review. We ask them to post what they thought of the product, and we potentially use it on our websites. Even in B2B, we're trying to start gathering quotes off clients even before the actual contract is signed. So advocacy, we're using that far, far earlier on in the customer experience, I think. So I've actually moved it up. It's essentially mapping this whole process that we like to think of in linear terms. It is easy for us as marketeers to think about this in linear terms. So we always think that we can introduce a customer at awareness. That's how we get the customers on board. And then when they become loyal, we kind of treat them as loyal forever and ever. And then we go into churn management. Excuse me, or loyalty management and those sorts of things. But essentially, we only do this because it helps us as humans in order to articulate the process we're trying to take the customer through. And I will come on to the next slide as to why that's an issue. But essentially, just so we're all talking about the same thing, I just want to articulate that awareness is where the customer is getting to know your brand, products and services. It could be hitting your website. It's about SEO. It's about them searching for you by product name as opposed to actually going straight to your website. That's awareness. That's where that is. Consideration is where they have an idea or a problem that they think that you can help with in the B2B world. And in the B2C world, you have a product that they either desire or that they aspire to own or that they know they need because it resolves an issue. The buying, that's self-explanatory. That's them moving into the buying stage. Interacting with your brand becomes much more personal. Advocacy and loyalty are then the two elements that I recently covered off on the previous slide. Advocacy, all about telling their friends and family all about you, posting reviews, and loyalty, of course, is engaging in a way in which they are part of your brand as opposed to just an advocate of it. This is the process that we're talking about when we talk about the customer journey. In the B2B world, from buying through to loyalty, you're talking more about one-to-one meetings. In the B2C world, it depends really on what product you engage in as to how you do that. So, although I mentioned earlier that it's easy for us to think about this journey as linear, this is where I want to challenge your thinking. I think that we think about this as a linear journey because that's how we want the customer to behave. Those of us who have been born out of marketing more than 5, 6, or 7 years ago will have always thought about process-driven fulfillment or process-driven elements of how we deliver marketing. And therefore, we're kind of starting to treat the journey as this linear cycle as well. This linear approach, sorry, not a linear cycle, that clearly wouldn't be linear. And we're doing so because it fits the way in which we work. That's my challenge for you. That's the way that I think we think as marketeers. For awareness, we talk about SEO, online advertising, driving leads or prospects. We talk about DMPs, about advertising through Facebook media. It's all above the line type approach. We're trying to get someone to click through or visit our store. So that's the kind of process that we drive. That's the deliverable we have for customers in that part of the journey. What you need to take into account, of course, is that some customers who are loyal to your brand have only just become aware of a product or service which you're actually delivering. So they could be jumping around the customer journey thought process. So it's difficult to qualify a customer as being pure awareness when journeys overlap and they intersplice each other constantly. When you think about consideration, that's where we start to put in offers, enticements. We place offers on the website. We personalize the content. In B2B, you might be giving product demos or go out to the customer's home or business address and show them what's in the bag, so to speak. That's about moving customers through the consideration approach. Vouchers, direct marketing, and segmentation will help throughout the buying process. Within B2B, you're talking about contracts there. Within B2C, it could be a point-and-click exchange of money. The transaction process for online purchasing, certainly within e-commerce, it can be over in seconds, especially if your consumer is comfortable enough and secure enough with their home network environment that their credit card details exist on their laptops. And so on and so forth, right through advocacy, referrals, and loyalty schemes. It's about incentivizing repeat engagement. So what you can see here is I've mapped the kind of content, if you will, that we deliver as marketeers to our perception of where the customer is on this journey. When we think about customer journey optimization, we tend to think in terms of how we optimize this process. the slide really tries to articulate what we're trying to move the customer through. So when we talk about optimization, we typically throw mathematical or data analytics at this and try to work out how we can get more conversion through this process, how we can get more referrals, how we can convert more awareness into consideration. It's a process-driven exercise, and we're doing this because effectively we're forcing ourselves into optimizing a linear process that's there to support a product-centric relationship. And that's why I'd like to challenge your thinking on the customer journey optimization. It's a product-centric relationship because we're focusing on how we move the customer through this linear process for each product or service that we have. And I want to change your thinking a little bit. Although using the customer data to improve a product-centric process can be successful, it doesn't make us customer-centric. So let's go back to our customer journey and start to move down the process of it's a lot more agile and fluid and needs to be so than you might think. Our customers can move through these stages at their own pace. Some will move slowly, some will move quickly. Some customers almost seem to skip stages. For example, just adding a line on the screen there. For example, they might skip consideration completely. They might move between awareness straight to buying. Now, in retail terms, we'd be treating that as an impulse purchase. In B2C, as we all know, the impulse shopping hours for any electronics goods in particular, or gadgets and those sorts of things, between the hours of 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. are impulse shopping hours. You'll have your consumers lying in bed or relaxing on their favorite chair or couch. They'll have their iPad open or their tablet. They'll find your product. They'll be aware of a product and think, that's cool, I want that. Click, bought, done. That kind of customer journey process is one which is not particularly unique. It's an impulse purchase process that we're aware of. So what we do is we try to treat that process like we would any other part of the process. Data being used as an informer of who's an impulse buyer and who's not doesn't mean that we can always treat them as an impulse buyer. You need to think that not only is every customer's journey a little bit unique, but every customer's journey can also overlap with other journey experiences you're delivering. What I mean by that is, let's say you have a customer who's in the buying process for a service or a product you have. It doesn't mean that your SEO or your PPC ads or your ad placement is hidden from them for other products and services. It is. You still expose them to the awareness part of your process. So, data being used as an informer of the customer journey as an optimization medium, it works historically because machine learning and AI and predicting how we move a customer through a journey more effectively is working on what's worked before. It's the historical view of your data. It is a great starting place. It is not the only place that we should think about optimizing the customer journey. And this is where I just wanted to spend this half-hour webinar was kind of challenging that thinking. But it's not just about product. It's not just about technology. So let's take, for example, your customers who decide to go their own way through their journey. You could have consumers, depending upon which vertical you're in, who would absolutely jump areas, won't expose themselves to your review section. They'll just go and purchase it, make their own mind up. You can have elements within your organization who will actually be advocates of your product without even buying them. I'm quite sure you've all seen on YouTube, there will be people that will unbox products. They've created videos and a isolatory business for themselves where they unbox a product on YouTube, and they have people watch. They have subscribers. They're effectively acting as an outlet channel for your description of what the boxing process itself looks like. Even customers that review and blog about products without having purchased them potentially jump around the journey. A while ago, I used to hear the term storyteller a lot more frequently, that marketeers were about storytelling. They were about delivering content, like the previous slide, in a certain process. We were creating places, if you like, that the customers could visit, and content that they could consume. But the principles of places and content is a throwback to the storytelling approach to marketing. And here's my second challenge. We are no longer in charge. The customers go where they want, when they want to go there. They create their own places, they create their own content, and they openly discuss it. They do more marketing about your brand, more discussion about your content, than potentially you think they know they do. Posts, reviews, videos, blogs, photos, comments, Pinterest pictures, Instagram posts. You think of everything about your brand and the brands that you use that your customers could post, and how quickly they can do so to anyone that knows them or is their follower, either directly or indirectly. Every piece of content that includes your product or your brand is marketing that you don't control. On their journey, and at any point, they can act as an advisor, a buyer, a reseller, a recommender, a shopper, a prospect, a loyalist, and even an arch enemy. Anything about your product they didn't like or your service that they didn't like can give you a negative review. Are we really able to optimize a customer journey where there are elements that we have no control of whatsoever? So these are the kinds of journeys that I think that we should be thinking about optimizing, not just the traditional marketing process-driven ones. As I believe it was coined in the Forbes magazine, the Business Review section, the new power of the consumer demands our respect. So essentially, when we think about optimizing the customer journey, it's not just the places where we have control. For some of these places, we have absolute control. We have power. For others, we have no power whatsoever, and we have everything in between, of course. This is a concept that I've discussed recently with quite a few of my clients who are trying to grasp how they can optimize their customer journeys, how they can do more than just analytics, how they're looking beyond that process. If you look at your touch points, like I will chat to my clients about, that you have for your customers, whether you're B2C, B2B, or B2C, or B2B2C, it makes no difference. Try and think about the actual touch points and work out what power you have by breaking it into 4 key kind of areas, really. You have the concept of a controller. Now, the controller organizes the party. The controller owns the party. They own the building. They can arrange the furniture however they want. They can serve whatever drinks and canapes they desire. They create the experience, and they decide who can go and who can come and what time they leave, what time they arrive, and when they get there. Things like newsletters, explicit offers, direct mail, email. Even if the email's personalized, you decide what goes into the email. There's no point kidding ourselves as marketeers and thinking that actually the customer decides on a personalized email. They don't. We're deciding it because we're trying to move them through a product-centric process. And that's what we need to kind of get away from. A participant is the second type, where you're invited to the party and you can join in, but you're not really in control of what happens. Try to think of most social media platforms here. In principle, that is, so Twitter, Facebook, etc. I know that you can have private conversations on Facebook and Twitter, and you can be barred from looking at them, but in principle, that covers most social media platforms. You have an observer where you're not actually invited at all, but you can see what's going on. Imagine being outside the party, looking through the window. You can see what's going on, but you actually have no control over what's happening inside there at all. Think of YouTube, blogging, reviews. Once the content is created and it's out there, you can't intercede, you can't intervene in it. It's there. Then you've got the fourth one, which is constantly overlooked, but actually one of the most powerful, where you're uninvolved. These are private conversations between friends, families, colleagues, internal discussions in a business. If you're in a B2B vertical, you'll know that there are many conversations happen behind closed doors that are part of the buying process that you're just not a part of. So treating your touch points and understanding all the different places on your customer journey map, where actually it allows you to understand one key aspect of customer journey optimization. There are areas of the journey that you have absolutely no control over whatsoever. And it's key. As a side note, by the way, this is also the reason why I don't believe in the phrase 360-degree view of the customer. 360-degree view of the customer, in my opinion, is never achievable. And as long as we have privacy laws and people that whisper, we will never actually get to a pure 360-degree view of the customer. Unless you have a method that is to monitor, capture, and store every interaction at every single one of those touch points, including private conversations between friends and family, you will never get there to a 360-degree view of the customer. You achieve the best you can and work with what you have. So it's not just about information. It's not just about the data you have. It's knowing that not only do you not always have control to change anything, but you also don't necessarily have the data to understand something accurately. So there's a lot happening on our customer journey. If we're going to be a real part of it, we need to not just change how we approach the journey, but also the way in which we think about it. And here are practical things that you can actually start to undertake straight after this webinar. It's not just the data, it's people. It's not just content, it's places, it's locations. So if we go back to our journey graphic for just 1 second to help us understand the processes that we go through. Experiences, the actual customer experience, they're becoming more important than products to many of your customers. In fact, experiences are products for many of your customers. Let me give you an example. Vegan cheese. So this is a particular favorite of mine. I believe it was last year at some point, Sainsbury's launched a vegan cheese. And they did so in a number of different parts of the marketing process in order to create awareness. So they engaged in SEO, social media, ad targeting, in-store content marketing, all of those wonderful things on the left-hand side. Perfectly admirable marketing process. Vegan cheese. Some of the social media posts they had in response to their advertisements were less than nice, shall we say. One in particular actually came from a member of Facebook who had a rant about the concept of vegan cheese. They pointed out that it can't be cheese if it's vegan. And one of the comments they put was, you might as well call it Gary. Gary being a person's name. The point was, you can't call it vegan cheese, you might as well call it Gary. So Sainsbury's actually grabbed onto this, grabbed onto the experience, looked at the place that their customers were creating, and decided to participate in it. They created, and you can Google it yourself, they created fantastic adverts, fantastic creative content, where the name of the cheese was no longer vegan cheese, it was Gary. It went viral. It went all over the place. Were they optimizing the customer journey? No. Were they improving the customer experience? Hell yeah. The branded imagery of the product line with the headline Gary, introducing our new cheese, #Gary, they participated and developed an experience. They not only improved the experience, but they were part of a customer journey that they otherwise had no control over. That's incredibly powerful. No data analytics, it's people. A second example is Zoella. If you've ever heard the phrase Zoella online, please feel free to Google Zoella as a brand. It's actually a person, Zoella Sugg. She created a blog in 2009, which was really focused on fashion and beauty. It was pretty popular as a blog element, and she expanded it into a video blog, a vlog, if you like, on YouTube later that year in 2009. She effectively was reviewing products from any retailer that she felt the desire to do so. Her success as an individual is meteoric, by the way. When I last checked, she had 11.3 million subscribers, and according to the Sunday Times, Zoella earns £50,000 per month. And she started as an advocate of brands that she didn't even necessarily have to purchase herself. She's an example of where New Look in particular, and other brands like New Look, embraced a very different way of engaging in a customer experience they had no power over. They influenced the products that she was talking about and reviewing in a way that was mutually beneficial to both her and the brand. They developed a B to B to C approach just for that part of the customer experience. So when you're thinking about optimizing your customer journey and the customer journey experience, don't think in terms of the marketing process only. Think more like a B2B organization, where you don't always have exposure and power to develop the internal conversation. Data is a part of it. Behavioral, attitudinal, attribution of response, they're all key to understand how you're spending your marketing pound and the marketing performance that you're engaged in. But it's not the whole answer. We need, as marketeers, strategies to identify and optimize relationships with key influencers. We need to be a part of the new power of the consumer. We don't just create the places. We don't just tell our customers where to go. Sometimes we just have to be there and greet them. Bottom line is, as marketeers, I think we have to practice more of a poem you might have known called The Serenity. We have to accept the things we cannot change. We have to have the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It may not have been the exact type of webinar that you were expecting. I certainly didn't want to go through a whole bunch of data analytics for you. I wanted to kind of open up the way in which we engage our customers. It's not just about technology. It's not just about data. It's not just about process. The people, the places, and the experiences can fundamentally shape the value that marketing brings. So I'm going to hand back to Anthony, and as I say, open to questions. Anthony.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jim. Incredibly insightful as ever. We do have some questions, so we will get to those. There's a few, 3 requests in for copies of the slides.
Yes, they can have copies of the slides.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think lots of really great things in there. I think it's going to be really interesting how the world develops. I mean, I was interviewed recently on a marketing blog talking about wearable technology, smart technology, things like that, and how that's going to affect the customer journey is going to be really, really interesting, and that's really just around the corner. So it's going to be pretty bonkers.
Also, when you think that I think it was 12, 13 years ago that YouTube was invented, if my numbers are right. It's about 12, maybe 13, 14 years ago that YouTube was invented. And it's already been bandied about that by 2020, the majority of cars on the road will be autonomous, automatically driven, and we will be involved in car shares. So the concept is that not only is the customer journey a marketing concept, but actually knowing exactly where we are in which vehicle at any given point in time. In-car marketing, video marketing, the world's changing, and either we are there to greet the customer, or we're just shouting into the abyss.
Yeah, well, one of the examples we had in this interview was, imagine your jacket being able to kind of work out what your blood sugar levels were and then recommend, places to go and eat.
Wow.
Okay. Bonkers. Some of the stuff, if you really think about it, but it's kind of there on the cusp. Anyway, I'm going to go and cut through some questions. We've got about 3. Please keep sending them through. The first question I've got is from a lady called Stella. She said, "Thank you, great presentation. Jim, how many organizations have you actually met that are executing true customer journeys as opposed to just lots of campaigns?"
Okay, so to answer your question bluntly, my view of what a true customer journey experience process is not being met by any organization at this current point in time. Organizations tend to get very excited when they think they've mapped the customer journey, but in reality, they tend to create different customer journeys for different products and services. And by doing so, they're falling into the product-centric approach that I've just described, which is not where we want to be. They're not thinking about the customer touch points, the customer experience. They're trying to fit their marketing process into a journey. So the customer journey, there are a number of clients we have, both who are our clients and who are not our clients, but I still talk to them, who are very, very good at understanding the customer experience, but not so good at intervening in it. There are some which are close, but nobody's quite there yet.
Okay.
So don't feel bad, Stella, if you're not there either.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. We also have a question here from Dennis. Sorry, Denise.
Okay.
Sorry, Denise. How much do you think social media has played a role in this delinearization of the customer journey? I'm not sure that's a word, actually.
It's incredibly important. Social media has not just created a platform, because of course prior to social media we had blogs, we had forums, we had WordPress, which was massive. I mean, it was incredibly big as a way for people to openly discuss and collaborate on their feedback. You had WordPress circles or rings, depending upon the blog environment you were in, where they were cross-posting each other's articles and each other's comments. The advent of social media almost made that instant. So the instant gratification of being a part of a place and a piece of content which is being discussed, people don't even have to be your customer to post a comment about it. I could actually comment about my friend's product that they bought from you. So let's say, for example, I don't know, it's a particular pencil. Even I might not own the pencil, but I've seen the pencil on a desk in work, and I can say, well, I don't like the way it feels. The ability for social media to create a voice around something that is uncontrollable to you and it's instant is a key part to the power of the consumer journey. Can we fundamentally take control? No, and I don't think we should want to. I think it's a powerful thing. When you think of with the right way to embrace social media, with the right approach, with the right context, we can actually make it work for us as marketers in ways that Sainsbury's have demonstrated, Zoella, New Look, the world that is getting the customer journey right is doing so from below the line, above the line, and on the line, every time.
I guess some of the principles in here, Jim, being a participant, being uninvolved, things like that, are going to be very difficult to try and convey to your boss as a marketeer to say, hey, we're not in control.
yeah. And as a group marketing director, I'm sure you have that view. If one of your team members said that to you, you wouldn't respond too well. So part of the benefit of these webinars, as you know, is that they are not aimed at a specific role within an organization. So this is not just at C-level. This is also at exec level and junior level, and even the interns get to watch the Bright Talk webinars. It's about educating people to the point at which they don't necessarily have to push customers into a process which they think they're in control of, and then be concerned why the response rates aren't where they think it should be. I'm sure that you remember years ago there was a huge push in many verticals to create referrer or affiliate programs. Affiliate programs just created more referrers which were there to get paid in order to give you names. You were just generating leads. You weren't generating the quality of referrer that made you want to generate referrers in the first place, if that makes sense. So sometimes we're not in control. Sometimes we are.
Okay. This one's more of a comment really, but totally agree about needing to think in a B2B to C world. Do you think it's actually maybe a B2C to C world?
Interestingly, B2C to C is the implication is that it is incredibly private, but anyone who is talking to multiple people on your behalf is acting as a B, not as a C.
Yeah.
They're acting as a business. They are giving measured response to a measured event. Take, for example, it's not just YouTube. Anyone out there who likes playing video games, or you know about twitch.tv, anyone out there who has watched a demonstration on YouTube of a video game before making a purchase, that is a B2B2C. They're actually making it for their brother or their best mate next door. But the popularity of YouTube itself allows them to expose it to a much wider audience. You need to develop a strategy to engage that part of your channel.
Okay.
There's an interesting question just got in, actually.
Sure, yeah. This one's anonymous, but it says if you can surround the prospect during their search using MarTech for all of the channels for search, digital, social listening, influencer identification, email, geofencing, etc., is mapping the journey at that point really important?
And that's interesting. And the reason why it's interesting is that there is a divide which has existed for a long time, and it's existing going forward as well. It is an uncontrollable divide, and it could potentially affect my answer to this question. And that is that the divide is personally identifiable information, PII. If I know who you are, if I have information that identifies you as an individual, your name, your address, your date of birth, those sorts of elements, then I can store that and I can process that as first-party data. The majority of MarTech that surrounds search, digital, social listening, and influencer identification tends to be PII-free. It tends to be done by device and cookie. And therefore, it ceases to be customer journey and begins to be audience management. Audience management allows me to manage a journey for a group of devices that have behaved in a certain way, no matter who is using that device. Whereas customer journey management allows me to understand the individual and the individual's behavior. It's critical, it's key, and whoever posted that, if you want to give us a phone call after this, I'm happy to have a more open discussion with you, but it's difficult. The bottom line is PII used? If not, it's audience management. If it is, it's customer journey management.
Okay, yes, so that was Douglas.
Thank you, Douglas.
That's right, and So that does end our questions. So thank you very much. As you see, it's been on screen for a while. We had quite a few questions there. I did want to mention that at BlueVenn we do run live demonstrations of our customer journey software. That's every 2 weeks. The next one is on the 1st of June. I'd love it if everyone here could come along to that as well. You can see the link there, www.bluevenn.com/live. I guess finally I'd just like to thank everyone who's been on the session today, everyone who's watching, everyone who's listening, everyone who's asked a question. Thanks to Stella, Denise, Justin, Douglas. Apologies, we've just started to get some last questions in, so we will come back to you on those. Thank you to BrightTalk, and finally thank you to Jim.
Thank you very much.
Okay, goodbye and have a great day, everyone.